Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a stack of previously unpublished short stories by Kurt Vonnegut, which, I mean, for Vonnegut, that's saying something.
It really is. Finding genuinely vintage, unseen Vonnegut. It's like hitting a serious literary jackpot. We've got the forward, context, the stories.
Yeah, and that context feels pretty crucial here. It gives us this unique lens into his craft, his themes, and that tension, right? That paradox at the heart of his work.
Exactly. John Leonard nailed it, I think. He called Vonnegut's whole approach a kind of weird jujitsu. You know how he was always funny when he's not being depressed.
That's a great way to put it. And that's really the mission for this deep dive, isn't it? To try and understand that paradox, how he fused human comedy with the tragedies of human folly.
hmm And these stories, they're mostly from the 50s, 60s,
Yeah.
written to pay the bills, basically.
Right, appearing in those big, slick magazines like the Saturday Evening Post. He was competing alongside, Hemingway, Fitzgerald,
Mm.
turning out polished, structured commercial fiction to support his family.
Which connects his, financial reality directly to the creative work.
hmm
And the sources keep pointing to that contradiction. Public persona versus private pain.
Yeah, Sidney Offutt mentions how Vonnegut might have had this private misery, but publicly he managed to scuttle his demons with Elan. He was out there playing tennis, ping pong, going to Knicks games, really engaging.
But underneath all that elan, as you
Mhm.
say, there's this deep, almost surgical sadness, that
Sure.
immediate grasp of tragedy.
Completely. I was really stopped by that quote after he went to a memorial for an unmarried author. Just this quiet, brutal summary. No children, no books, few friends.
Oof, yeah.
And then, in classic Vonnegut style, he adds, she seemed to know what she was doing. That empathy, that quiet nod to life's failures. It's just pure Vonnegut.
And that kind of intimate understanding of what's at stake,
Hmm.
I think that's what made him so precise about the writer-reader contract. Which brings us to his core rule for writing fiction. Surprisingly simple.
Which,
Use the time of a total stranger in such a way that he or she will not feel the time was wasted.
that's fantastic advice. Just brutally practical. It demands efficiency, engagement. You can't mess around.
Exactly. And then there's the more structural advice he gave students, which really shows the mechanism. Two key things.
Okay.
First, pretty standard, development. Every scene, every dialogue should advance the narrative. No wasted words.
Makes sense. Keep it moving.
But the second part is where that jujitsu comes in. He insisted on a surprise ending. Why? Because he said it turns the story around and gives it meaning.
So the surprise isn't just a trick, it's the pivot, the thing that justifies the whole journey for the reader.
Precisely. It delivers the moral, the ethical point.
Okay, but stepping back from just the craft, how did he see art itself being created? The sources mention this interesting letter from 1951.
Right, to Walter J. Miller. He was grappling with this idea from an instructor, Slotkin, that great art isn't purely individual. It's a group product, a school.
A school, meaning like-minded artists influencing each other.
Sort of, yeah. Vonnegut felt this group product idea provided something vital, confidence, or as he put it, the fantastic amount of guts it takes to add to culture. And crucially, it gave the artist one-sidedness with assurance.
One-sidedness with assurance. That sounds, well, it sounds like being deliberately biased. Doesn't art need nuance, seeing all sides?
Vonnegut seemed to argue the opposite, at least for making an impact. He concluded that you can't amount to anything in the arts if you become sweetly reasonable, seeing all sides of a picture, forgiving all sins.
So he felt you needed that strong, maybe even angry single viewpoint, that assuredness.
It seems so, like a necessary perspective, maybe even a necessary rage, to actually push culture forward, to write stories that land.
Okay, that definitely sets the stage for how he uses that sharp eye in his stories. Let's dive into Confido. That one really goes after technology and human weakness.
Oh, absolutely. Confido is a fantastic early example. He's anticipating how tech could expose our inner lives. The device itself is simple. Small tin box, earphone.
But the promise is huge. Instant conversation, advice, therapy, fulfilling that deep need for somebody to talk to, somebody who really understands.
The universal longing. But the twist, the terrifying irony of Henry Bauer's invention, is how it provides that understanding.
It tells you the absolute truth, your worst dissatisfactions, your meanest thoughts.
Yeah, it's like a truth serum for your soul, basically. It tells Ellen her marriage is just merely existing. And then, completely unfiltered, it comments on her neighbor, Mrs. Fink.
Oh, the complexion, like salami line. brute.
Oh, exactly. It's just this immediate, relentless externalization of all the nasty stuff we usually keep locked up.
And the consequence of that total honesty. That's what makes the story stick, I think. Ellen ends up burying the device.
She literally buries it, calls it that filthy little beast, shoves it under the hydrangeas.
Because, as she realizes, it's a direct wire to the worst in us, and her conclusion is just chilling. Nobody should have that. That little voice is loud enough as it is.
It's a spiritual reckoning, isn't it? Choosing the illusion, maybe, over that constant, harsh clarity. And this focus on the dark side, on truth and mental health, it connects to his recurring skepticism about psychiatry.
Which pops up pretty darkly in Look at the Birdie.
Yeah, the satire there is just pitch black. You've got a narrator in a bar fantasizing about harming someone, and this guy in a black mohair suit offers his services.
As a murder counselor, calmly, wisely. It's the peak of therapeutic absurdity.
And this counselor, he's a self-confessed nut and felon who happily explains how he murdered people in prison using the cat-over-the-wall technique, whatever that is.
Right. So a literal lunatic offering murder counseling as a mental health service. This is where Vonnegut's cynicism feels, well, almost complete. Is he saying that madness is the only sane reaction?
He gets incredibly close to saying exactly that. The murder counselor has this line that just perfectly sums it up. A paranoiac, he claims, is a person who has gone crazy in the most intelligent, well-informed way, the world being what it is.
Wow. That's a devastating line. It basically says that seeing reality clearly looks exactly like madness. Let that sink in.
It totally flips the script on who's sane and who isn't.
Okay. So, from these very personal psychological deep dives, let's pivot to the bigger picture. Large-scale failure. The story, FUBAR.
Right. FUBAR. Fouled up beyond all recognition, and crucially, Vonnegut defines it here not as something caused by, like, one evil person.
Not malice.
No, not malice, but by administrative accidents in some large and complex organization. The system itself is the problem.
And we see that systemic mess played out locally in Ed Luby's Key Club, set in Ilium, New York classic Vonnegut territory.
Ed Luby, he's the center of it. Former Capone bodyguard turned bootlegger, used his prohibition money to basically buy the town.
It's a whole network, right? The police chief who somehow has a $70,000 house on an $8,000 salary.
Right. Judge Wampler, the mayor, Captain Luby, Ed's brother who owns the hotel and the radio station. It's all interconnected. An administrative accident of corruption.
The whole system is rotten, so rotten that fixing it requires this almost theatrical intervention.
Yeah, state police, federal agents pulling off this elaborate psychological trick in a hospital operating room to expose everyone. It really underlines how deep the rot went. Only outside forces could break that cycle.
And even while he's digging into these really bleak systemic problems, his writing style, that craftsmanship, it's always there.
Never falters. There's that great description from Hall of Mirrors just painting a picture of the weather. Listen to this. Autumn winds, experimenting with the idea of a hard winter, made little twists of soot and paper, made the plastic propellers over the used car lot go furr.
28 Rs. You can just hear that cheap plastic spinning, feel the chill. It forces you, the reader, to stop and hear it. That's commitment.
Absolutely. The bleakness never compromises the quality of the sentence.
Okay, let's look now at those endings. The unpredictable conclusions that, as he said, give the stories their meaning. His rule about the surprise ending, like in The Nice Little People.
Classic early Vonnegut sci-fi vibe here. Tiny insect-like aliens arrive. Spaceship the size of a paper knife. Lowell Swift, a linoleum salesman, finds them.
So you're expecting, I don't know, first contact military stuff.
Right. But Vonnegut, being Vonnegut, he twisted into domestic tragedy. The aliens get tangled up in Swift's failing marriage.
And the spaceship itself becomes pivotal. What happens?
It's completely unexpected and devastating. In the middle of this argument, the tiny spaceship flies out of Lowell's hand and hits his wife, kills her instantly.
Just like that.
Just like that. An absurd, sudden end that resolves the marriage problem through sheer, tragic absurdity.
Wow. And that theme, marital pain, the dark side of truth revealed in a surprise, that feels even stronger in The Good Explainer.
Oh, definitely. You have Joe and Barbara Cunningham. Joe travels a long way to see this Dr. Abakian, thinking he's a fertility specialist.
Right. They can't conceive. He's seeking help.
But the surprise, revealed right there to Joe, is that Abakian is just a local GP. And the real gut punch, he's an old flame of Barbara's who performed a botched abortion on her years ago. That's why she's sterile.
And Barbara orchestrated this whole confrontation, this incredibly public, humiliating reveal for her husband. Why?
It was deliberate, calculated even. She tells Joe she did it to force the doctor, who was always, quote, so much better than I was at explaining why everything we did was all for the best, to finally explain the real devastating truth to her husband.
So she used the surprise ending structure almost literally to force this excruciating moment of honesty, to expose years of deception.
Exactly. It's a quest for truth, however painful.
We should probably end with what feels like maybe the most profound moral lesson in the whole collection: the honor of a newsboy. This feels like Vonnegut at his most compassionate, maybe.
I think so. It's all about redefining bravery.
Mm.
Chief Charlie Howes, the police chief, he talks to Mark, this newsboy whose father's known as a total coward.
And the chief doesn't lie about it, right? He confirms it. Tells Mark, yeah, your dad was born that way. Loaded down with all that fear.
Just lived his whole life terrified.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the father delivered newspapers. And he always made sure to get the paper up to Earl Headland's house.
Headland being this local bully with a scary house, big mean doll.
Right. And the father did it, terrified, simply because delivering the paper was the rule.
And that's where the twist comes, the redefinition of honor.
Charlie connects that deep, innate fear to what real honor is. He tells Mark, it's a mighty brave man who can live with all that. So just think a minute how brave your father was to get that paper up to Earl Headland's rather than break a rule.
That's just stunning. It reframes everything. True bravery isn't being fearless, it's acting right even when you're terrified.
It's incredibly compassionate.
So, taken together, these unpublished stories, they really give us fuller access to Vonnegut's mind, don't they? You see the cynical wit, yes, but also those strict structural rules he followed and that constant search for the moral core, even in absurdity.
They absolutely confirm the accessibility and the durability of his talent. He really did have that magic verbal lantern, didn't he? Shining a light on human behavior, the good and the bad, always with that leavening of humor and forgiveness.
And circling back to that early idea, that letter about artistic creation needing one-sidedness with assurance, needing artists to avoid being sweetly reasonable. If pushing culture forward, if making real art requires avoiding consensus, maybe even being unreasonable, well, here's something for you to chew on. What essential knowledge, what unconventional perspective might you be holding back because you're afraid of being seen as simply unreasonable?